You asked me if an ordinary person, by studying hard, would get to be able to imagine these things like I imagine. Of course, I was an ordinary person who studied hard. There's no miracle people. It just happens they got interested in this thing and they learned all this stuff. They're just people. There's no talent, a special miracle ability to understand quantum mechanics or a miracle ability to imagine electromagnetic fields that comes without practice and reading and learning and study. So if you say you take an ordinary person who's willing to devote a great deal of time and study and work and thinking and mathematics and time, then he's become a scientist.
Because I suspect that what goes on in every man's head might be very, very different. The actual imagery or semi-imagery which comes. And that when we're talking to each other at these high and complicated levels, and we think we're speaking very well, and we're communicating, but what we're really doing is having some kind of big translation scheme going on for translating what this fellow says into our images, which are very different. I found that out because at the very lowest level, I won't go into the details, but I got interested in, well, I was doing some experiments, and I was trying to figure out something about our time sense. And so what I would do is I would count, trying to count to a minute. Actually, say I'd count to 48, then it would be 1 minute. So I'd calibrate myself, and I would count a minute and 48, think I was count seconds, but it's close enough. And then it turns out if you repeat that, you can do very accurately. When you get to 48 or 47 or 49, not far off, you're very close to a minute. And I would try to find out what affected that time sense and whether I could do anything at the same time as I was counting. And I found that I could do many things. I could, there were some things that not. For example, I had great difficulty. I was in the university and I had to get my laundry ready. And I was putting the socks out and I had to make a list how many socks, and it was something like 6 or 8 socks, and I couldn't count them because the counting machine was being used and I couldn't count them until I found out I could put them in a pattern and recognize the number. And so I learned a way after practicing by which I could go down the lines of type in newspapers and see them in groups 3331, that's a group of 10, 3331, without saying the numbers, just seeing the groupings. And could therefore count the lines of type I practiced in the newspaper at the same time I was counting internally the seconds. And so I could do this fantastic trick of saying, 48, that's 1 minute, and there are 67 lines of type, you see. It was quite